Hey, how you going? Jason here. Today we're going to be looking at 4 affordable Tube Screamer alternatives. And that doesn't include this one, the Boss SD1, which is a really good Tube Screamer alternative, but I have covered it in a couple of other videos, which I'll put in the description, and also the fact that it doesn't fit the color scheme. So I've chosen as one of them the Ibanez Tube Screamer Mini, and I've chosen it for 2 reasons. One, this is going to be a point of reference for the other 3 pedals, and number 2, this is actually a really good alternative if you own TS9 or an 808 and you don't want to take them with you on the road because you're afraid they get damaged or stolen, or if you can't afford one of those pedals, this is a genuine alternative. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play a piece of music using both fingers and strumming. I'm going to come up with the tone that I like with this pedal, and I'm going to see if I can get the other 3 pedals to replicate the tone from the TS Mini. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to treat these pedals individually. Now, these are Tube Screamer alternatives, but they might be slightly different in their own right and might sound good in their own right, so there's no point always just referring back to the original Tube Screamer because they might have their own sort of sound that they might be capable of producing. So I'm just going to fiddle around with each one and see what sort of tones I can get out of each. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use each one of these as a solo boost in front of a Marshall Plexi style overdrive, which is going to be the exotic SL drive. Now, this is a really common use for a Tube Screamer type pedal because not only can you add more gain and more level to boost your solos, one of the most useful functions of a Tube Screamer is it rolls off high end and it rolls off a bit of low end as well. Now, too much high end when you're hitting those high notes can really sizzle and it can hurt people's ears and it can be very irritating. So rolling that off is really, really useful. And same with rolling off the low end. By rolling off low end, you get rid of some of those flubby frequencies that make your notes not as defined. And also it boosts some of the mid frequencies which help your guitar to really sing. So I'm going to set each one of these up as a boost in front of the SL drive and see how they sound. So what did I think of these pedals? Well, the NUX, which only cost me about $30 brand new in Australian dollars, I thought was very surprising. I thought it was quite good. It really sort of, I wouldn't say it completely nails the Tube Screamer sound, but it's pretty darn close. Now, if you want to know what the whole Tube Screamer thing is all about and you don't want to go breaking the bank to buy one in case you don't like it, this might be a good option for you. Because the truth is, I think if you don't like this, you probably won't like a Tube Screamer at all. So this is a good cheap option for you to sort of dip your toe in the water, so to speak. Also, if you're starting out or you're on a budget, I think this is a great option. The issues I have with this pedal, I have three. One is the plastic chassis. That's never a good thing, especially I'd be afraid that I'd put my foot through it at a show. The button is very, very loud and very clunky. And the tone knob doesn't seem to do a whole lot. So it's not particularly great for tone shaping. But having said all that, it is very decent, and for 30 bucks, you can't really complain. So next I have the Mooer Green Mile, and this is a pretty decent replication of a Tube Screamer. Now, a lot of people think they sound near identical. I didn't. I thought that this didn't have as much pronounced mid-range as the TS Mini. And this has a hot switch, and I forgot to turn that on so you could hear that. But basically, I think it adds a lot more compression, and it really sort of squishes the sound, and I don't actually really like it very much. In fact, any review I've ever seen of this, I don't think I've seen anybody who actually likes it in hot mode. So that's something you can try yourself if you have one, or if you are interested in buying one. Now, metal chassis, this would be better for gigging with. If you're going to use a Tube Screamer occasionally, maybe as a solo boost, or maybe as a light overdrive occasionally, this might be a really good option for you. I still think it's very decent, and for the money, we're talking about between sort of $50 Australian and up to about 80 brand new. Now, the Digitech Bad Monkey, which I used in another video of mine, which was the pedal board for under 250 Australian dollars. Now, this one's a bit different to the others because for two reasons. One, you can't buy these brand new anymore. They stopped making them, so you can only get them secondhand. And secondly, this one has a two-band EQ. We have high and we have low. What I noticed was when I moved the low just past 12 o'clock, it starts to get very flubby only at about 1 or 2 o'clock. So you don't have to move it much, only about to about there, and it starts to get really flubby. But it is a fairly smooth pedal. I think it was smoother than the other two that we've already looked at. The one thing I noticed about this also was that it didn't have as much pronounced mid-range as any of the other pedals. So using it as a solo boost, I just don't think it had as much of those warm frequencies that a Tube Screamer is famous for producing. So I would use this on its own. I probably wouldn't have it as a solo boost. But you know, that's my opinion. I know that a lot of people swear by these, and they are very underrated, and people are only now just realizing how good these are, and they're starting to go up in value. So if you find one for a decent price, you might want to snap it up. So last of all, I have the Tube Screamer Mini. What can I say about this pedal? Recently, Guitar Magazine put out a pedal edition, and they rated the TS Mini as being in the top 50 pedals that you can buy today. And for myself, the highest praise I can give it is that I owned a TS9, and putting these two side by side, I sold my TS9 because there's only about a fairy fart's worth of difference in tone between the two, and yet this one is pedal board friendly size. It's still quite heavy though. It's about twice the weight of the Green Mile. Now, it works beautifully as a solo boost, and it works beautifully on its own. And the thing that this had that a bit more of that the others didn't seem to really nail was that mid boost that you get from a Tube Screamer. It was sitting at around about 500 hertz, and it was a little bit more pronounced than it was on the other pedals. For example, the NUX, I found that the mid push on that, it did have a mid push, but I reckon it was more sort of in the range of about 700 to 800 hertz, which was a little bit more honky. Whereas this one was just a bit creamier, and it really helps to make your notes sing, especially if you use it as a solo boost. So I can't speak highly enough of this pedal. I think you need to go out, you need to try one, and if you try one, you'll probably buy one. So I've been Jason. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video or if you like my content, and I'll see you next time.